Om Mahaganapataye Namaha. In this video, I'm going to talk about a very, very important concept that I've been experiencing, observing, and reflecting on of late that is related to changing your destiny. And not just the one-off manifestations, but creating a state of being that allows you to manifest at a fantastically rapid rate and continuously, not just one manifestation, but you will be sprouting all kinds of manifestations. And that is simply control your emotional state, and you can control everything. Now, if you watch my past video, I did talk a little bit about the science of this and recommended you check out the work of Joe Dispenza. And there is a science behind this where the thoughts and emotions are connected. Now, before I get into that, if you're not familiar with this concept, according to quantum physics or particle physics, thoughts are creating our reality, or the information we are holding on to, which is also called as karma in the Vedic or the Hindu tradition. Their vernacular is different than what we have now. We have the subconscious, we have the unconscious, we have genetic genes, DNA, all these different forms of information we carry with us that create an expression of not just our biology, but also our reality. This is particle physics. Now, we talk a lot about managing our minds in this regards to ensure that we are creating the reality that we want. In terms of our conscious mind, although it is the effect of our subconscious and unconscious, more powerful parts of our mind, which represents the majority of the mind that we are not accessing, by holding on to certain thought patterns, we can push those into our subconscious and unconscious mind through repetition, through reinforcement. Also, the kinds of thought patterns you have are an effect of your subconscious and unconscious mind as well, and give you an idea of where you need to focus your attention. Now, getting back to this concept of the emotional state, what do I mean by this? Well, there is science now that is saying that emotions, what we call as emotions, although it is, as the popular term goes, energy in motion, or an energy, emotions, energy. However, on the most gross level, emotions are chemicals. Let me repeat that. Emotions are chemicals. When you experience joy, when you experience anger, when you experience happiness, peace, frustration, this is actually, at the grossest level, a chemical experience you are having. So when you have thoughts or this electricity stimulates the release of certain neurotransmitters, and stimulates the release of certain chemicals that our body processes as feelings. And these chemicals, we can become addicted to them. For example, when you are constantly in a state of survival, where you're stressed, you're worried all the time, you're rushing around, what happens is your body produces these chemicals to allow you to experience that, what gives you the feeling of the stress, the worry, the fear, the anxiety. And what happens is, over time, biologically, your body is so used to the chemicals that the chemicals themselves, your body will automatically produce them as a default state of being. And these chemicals, we said the mind, it triggers these, but it goes both ways. So when you're in a certain chemical state, this also gives rise to certain thought patterns. So if you are feeling stressed out, if you are feeling anxious, if you are feeling worried, like you never have enough time, like you have a million things to do, like what's going to happen if I don't get enough money, or whatever it is, if you're feeling this way, you're going to feed the certain kinds of thought patterns. And according to the yogis, and also my own experiences, because I've been putting a lot of attention on this of late, thanks to Joe Dispenza's work, the emotions are more powerful than the thoughts. So if you can maintain or manage, which I'm going to talk about how you can do this in a few moments, very importantly. If you can maintain your emotional state, which is to say, if you can maintain your chemical balance, thinking positively and experiencing that inner happiness that doesn't require a level of fulfillment. Or more precisely, if you watch my last video, and if you follow Joe Dispenza's work at all, you know that by embodying the state of being that you want to become, you can snap yourself into that reality at a much faster pace, bringing in the concepts of particle physics, where it is the information, the observer and the observed are one and the same. So as Joe Dispenza talks about, in order to create a new reality, you have to change yourself. I have a quote on my Facebook page. I don't remember it verbatim, but in essence, it is saying is you can't create a new reality with your old personality. You have to become someone completely different, and more precisely, you have to become that person who you want to become. That's why one of the first steps of manifestation, one of the first ones, is identifying exactly who and what you want to become. It's okay that you want money, but what does that mean? Be very clear. How do you want to feel about this? Like, be very, very clear, and then you want to go ahead and mimic or be that person ahead of time. So, what we talked about in the past video, which I'm going to get into, this is going to be a segue into teaching about how to do this, how to manage and engineer your emotional state, is that your body, your biology, your neurology, and your psychology, they are not able to differentiate between reality or an external stimulus and an internal manufactured emotion. For example, I use the analogy: if someone pays you a compliment and it makes you feel good, your body then triggers some dopamine and it makes you feel good, and you feel that as a little hit of joy. Where if you were able to imagine someone giving you a compliment and experiencing that feeling as if it already happened, and being able to manufacture that dopamine or engineer it, the body and mind cannot differentiate. So you can engineer these emotions ahead of time. So in the last video, I taught you about how to use a combination of midbrain tapping and imagination to manufacture this default state, which is the new identity you want to create, which is really off the back of your emotional state. So what about imagination? Let me just briefly touch on that, touch and go on that, with two different things. One is about Albert Einstein, who says, imagination is more profound than the intellect. Why would he say something like this? One of the greatest minds of all time, who's typically associated with the poster boy for academia, although he has a lot of concepts that are very, very much not in line with the modern day academia. And the science behind this, we talked about the research study done by Harvard, and there are many studies out there where Harvard studied pianists, and they studied their brains when they were playing the piano, and then when they were imagining playing the piano, and they found that brain signatures was exactly the same as if they were playing the piano versus imagining it. And you can experience this as yourself. If once you practice this and get good enough at it, you can sit down and you can put a little smile on your face and imagine what it feels like to become that person. So if you want to be, everyone loves money. Let's say you want to be wealthy, or you have a certain level of financial freedom. Maybe it's a specific number, $9,000 a month, or $20,000 a month, whatever it is. What you want to do is you want to feel as if what it feels like as if you already manifested, like that feeling of like awe, of gratitude. Because gratitude is not a foo-foo feeling. We want to bring this, remember, we're bringing this into the realm of science and logic. Gratitude is a state of being. That is a state of being of reception. When do you feel grateful? You feel grateful when something you desired happened. It already happened, so you are just so grateful. Oh my God, I got the car that I wanted. I got the boyfriend or girlfriend that I wanted. I got this incredible miracle at work. I got a raise, or whatever it is. You just feel it's a gratitude that you naturally comes with that experience. Gratitude signals your biology, neurology, and psychology that something has already happened. So by holding on to a state of gratitude, you are putting yourself in an elevated state, number one. An elevated state is these positive emotions of gratitude, of joy, of appreciation, of love and compassion. This is what we consider as an elevated state. Now, we talked about chemicals, but on a more subtle level, they can measure this. There is an energetic field around the body. These elevated states are higher frequency. you can manifest faster, and you can manifest a better reality by remaining and keeping yourself in these elevated states. Lower states is this all around the survival mechanism, okay? So the lower states are born out of our inherent biology and neurology that's been programmed into our genes for hundreds, if not thousands of years of survival. Survival is all about the fear, the anxiety, the worry, the stress, the anger, the frustration. It's all because we are in a state of survival. So you have to train yourself to drop that, because we have been conditioned by it, but in most cases, by all the people around us from a very young age. We've also been conditioned by it through our genetic information. So you have to drop that survival and allow yourself to remove the shackles or the tethers so that you can elevate yourself into these higher states. And by remaining in those states, you can attract like crazy. Dr. Ply talks about this concept of if you remain in a state of love, you will attract like crazy. Now, Joe Dispenza has some science to this. He talks about thought and emotion, and he compares them as such. Thought is the electricity. The emotion is the force of magnetic. So together they create an electromagnetic field. So the heart and the emotions are very connected. And through his research, he's found that the heart acts like an amplifier. So when you think a thought, that's why you can think a thought, anything you want. You can do all the affirmations you want. But if there's no emotion behind them, and particularly the right kinds of emotions, they may not manifest because they're just, it's like you're putting out a signal, but there's no power to it. There's no oomph behind it. Where you want to bring in that magnetic power to bring that to you. So you want to amplify the thought through this elevated emotions, and particularly I am recommending gratitude. And this is a personal experience that I've had. It's not just me saying this. The first day that I tried this whole concept of thinking a thought in the present tense that I wanted to manifest, and then putting the emotion of gratitude in and really opening my heart to it in combination with this midbrain tapping. But even just forgetting the midbrain tapping, if you can just start with feeling the emotion and associating those emotion, that thought, and blending them so they become one. Within 24 hours, I had all these different blessings unlock into my life that it must have been just sitting there, one after another within hours. It was absolutely incredible. And if you want to hear this story, just go watch my past video about that. So I will offer to you is learn how to engineer these emotions. How do you do that? Just train yourself to be able to, at the drop of a dime, put yourself into these elevated states. And to make it more productive, take a thought you want in present tense and put at a gratitude. Just experience what it's like that you already have it. Wow, it's incredible. I can't believe it. It's incredible. I'm so grateful. And if you can cry and if you can get to that level of emotion, you're putting so much energy into that thought that you are changing your personality. Because remember, your personality, as Joe Dispenza says, is your personal reality, or your identity is your reality. And your identity just means the information of the unlimited, you yourself as an extension of the collective consciousness. You are an extension. We are all connected at one level, which is the unified field theory in particle physics. You are an extension of this unified field. And you, who you are, is nothing but a coalesced or crystallized amount of information from this field. Your preferences, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you act, and so on and so forth. You are a coalesced packet of information. And by changing that information ahead of time, you can snap yourself into these alternate realities, these parallel timelines. You can, in general, change your information by engineering that. And now that we have this technology of not just thinking what you want, but also the emotion, then you can go on to using mantras and all other different kinds of meditations. But this I would consider, this concept of the thought in present tense, which is distilled into a distilled syntax. So it's very crystallized, it's very clear. And the more that you go reflect on it, the more the thought, the affirmation will become more and more distilled. I recommend, as a way to do that, is write it down every day. And when you write it down, don't refer to what you wrote down the other day. Write it down on a blank sheet of paper, and you will naturally write it down differently until you get to a point or you're writing it down the same way every single day without having to go and refer to it. That'll help you distill the thought or the thoughts. You can do a list of 5 or whatever you want. And then this is probably the most important of all, is training yourself to unlock the emotional energy from your heart or just in general and release those chemicals into your body and retrain your biology, retrain your neurology and your psychology. And they're all connected. By retraining your biology, your neurology will be impacted. By retraining your neurology, and so on and so forth. So I hope this video helps. I hope this video inspires you. And I hope this gives you some concepts that you can go and use and apply right away. It doesn't take long. You just have to discipline yourself a little bit and reinforce it. And what happens is, when you start doing new things, it does take a little bit of against the grain, where it's not your default state to do something like this. But you will make it your default state by continually getting yourself to do it. So maybe at first you have to set yourself reminders. Maybe at first you have to put out a note on your desk somewhere that you'll see it, or on your refrigerator, so you're being constantly reminded to do this, because your default state will try to do just that. It'll try to put you back in that groove. If you can imagine a record player, your default state is that groove where the needle's in. You are literally going to have to pick up that needle and put it into a different groove, and you're going to have to manually do that. But once you're able to do that, you're going to be in a new groove, and it's no problem, and then you'll float down the stream naturally. So if you like this video, please click the like button, and if you found it valuable, please feel free to share it with others who you think would find this information valuable too. As always, if you'd like to be notified for future videos, click subscribe and the bell notification. God bless.